and we will get going. And if everyone got the recording thing, if you could let me know, or somebody in the chat, let me know that it started recording. It started recording for me, but it started recording for everyone else. You could let me know. That'd be great. Yes. Okay. Perfect. Thanks, guys. All right. Awesome. So I hope everyone's doing well. Welcome to our Newcomers 101 presentation. My name is Laura McCauley, and I am the Assistant Director of Programming for the South Carolina Multilingual Learner Educator Network. And just as a reminder, if you guys are not following us on social media, please do. We love to have as many people as possible follow us. We're putting out content almost every day during the week. And you can also join our mailing list. We do not spam. All it is about once a month we send out a newsletter, or if there's an event coming up, we send out a reminder. So it's nothing where you have to feel like you're just going to get all this information from us. But it is nice to stay up to date. And if you miss something on social media, you can find it there as well. We also have a website that feel free to bookmark that. That's in the yellow tab on the bottom. And just as a reminder during this presentation, if we could make sure nobody's mics are on right now, but if we can make sure we keep our mics off, that'd be really helpful in terms of feedback. All right, so we're going to just jump right into it. We have a bunch of, sorry, I'm just letting people in here. We have some incredible people. I'm so excited about the content that we have today. I was telling someone the other day just how comprehensive this presentation is. And I'm just so excited that you guys get to listen to everything that these incredible teachers have to say. We're going through defining newcomers by April. We have assessment and progress monitoring done by Melinda, engaging families by Joanna, teaching strategies by Jennifer, inclusive classrooms by Haney, and then we will have a Q&A if time allows. If we go a little bit past 5, we probably won't get to it, but feel free to put any questions in the chat. And we also have a feedback form that we will be sending out and sharing at the end of this presentation, that if you guys have any questions and want further information, you can feel free to put those questions there as well. 5 o'clock is our goal. But if we go a little bit past, because, we're taking our time, we're trying to go through everything that we have presented. Like I said, it's pretty comprehensive. Then that's totally okay. It will be recorded. So if it's 5 p.m., you're like, I really got to go. That's totally fine. But we're going to try to end as close to 5 as possible. Just letting you guys know that. So without further ado, we're going to have April go ahead and get started. April, you're muted. You're good. No worries, girl.
Oh, how are you? My name, as she said, my name is April Davis, and I have been teaching multilingual learners, ESOL, for about 14 years. I currently teach at J.C. Lynch Elementary in Coward, South Carolina. I've previously taught in Lancaster County. So I'm going to be talking to you about who newcomers are, this specific group, this specific population. And for that, I kind of took a little bit of a journalistic point of view. The who with that is that these are children who are new to U.S. schools. They come with their own skill set and schema. When I was a student in Charleston, for example, I had a child who knew how to clean fish, and she would talk to me about measuring the fish and cleaning fish and things of that nature. And so that is a skill that she came with. So they have a gamut and a variety of skill sets and schema. They've usually, this population has usually entered a U.S. school within the last year. And that sometimes can vary depending on the child, but that's just a general time frame. And I have in the where, lots of children come from lots of places all over the world to U.S. schools on a daily basis. Some of the children I have taught have come from China, Korea, Mexico, India, and Guatemala, Honduras, places like that. and they come here for various reasons. You'll see later on in our presentation, we have some misconceptions that we're going to go over. But one thing that some people believe is that they come for, they illegally come, or, but that's not always the case. Sometimes they migrate legally, sometimes they just, move from one country to the other. So they come for various reasons. Um, and I think I'm ready, Laura, for that next slide. This is a wonderful graphic that was shared with me that someone in our network created based on From Ideas to Words by Tasha Prop. It kind of talks about that gamut of skill sets, the gamut of language spoken. Children come from, like I said, everywhere. One thing that you may not think of is that some newcomers could be considered to be a newcomer even though they were born in this country. Many times those are children who've been at home with mom speaking Spanish or Hindi or whatever, and then they come to kindergarten with us. They might live in relative economic comfort, or they could be poor. And some newcomers, the newcomer requirement is not that you speak minimal English. Some newcomers come with some English skills. And then lastly, their educational history. Some newcomers come with a variety and some deep literacy background in their first language, and some do not. So just like people in the world are unique, this unique population is unique, and they within that group, they are very different. Okay, Laura? Next slide. I wanted to talk to you about making sure with newcomers that you have a trauma-informed, compassionate classroom. On your right, you see I have from Echo Training an infographic about the do's and don'ts of a trauma-informed classroom. And really, if you are a teacher of any kind, you want to make sure that you are trauma-informed, because many children have been through many things. But 3 or 4 or 5 things that you could do to make sure that your classroom is trauma-informed is creating a safe space. And for newcomers, that's really important. Establishing predictability. For newcomers, that is important because as you establish routines and predictability, it allows them to have less anxiousness and more focus on learning that target language and learning the environment around them, and they can pick up on words and patterns of words easily. Building a sense of trust, offering choices sometimes, as well as making sure that helping students stay regulated. On this left side, I have some things that I just have found from my own experience, and I want to kind of connect those things to this trauma-informed infographic for you. We know that as teachers and educators that we have got to meet those Maslow's hierarchy of needs before we can deal with the Bloom's taxonomy. So that kind of connects to creating our safe space, helping children stay regulated, as well as number 3, building that sense of trust. Smiling and welcoming the child can help them feel safe and create that trust. The relationship is just very key here. And then making sure again that you have created a safe environment where they feel comfortable. If they are not regulated, telling you that they need something, or if they if they are struggling with something, they have that trust to tell you what it is that they're struggling about. One thing I want to stop and kind of camp out in here is I've got not asking about their journey. Now, I don't mean that you can't talk to them at all about their journey, but I want to make sure that that's not number 1 thing that you ask these children about from day one. Some of them have had traumatic journeys and some of them have not. But the key here is that we want to make sure that we have created a relationship with these children and not just start off with that discussion. And creating a safe space, building again that sense of trust and creating a safe space for them that allows them to share if at some point they feel comfortable enough. Because really, then that's not any of our business. But if they provide that information, once we have that safe space for them, and if we determine that they need maybe some counseling or something else, that is a great way to do that once they talk about their journey. But that's not something I would force right off the bat. I would focus, just like with any child, on making sure that you have a good relationship with that child. And then last few things is learning a few words in their native language and allowing them to use the native language at appropriate times. Um, Learning hello and good morning or how are you is really a great way to build a relationship with a newcomer. They've spent all day, or they think they're going to spend all day, not hearing any of their native language. And just I've seen so many children just light up once you say hello in Spanish or in Hindi, because they just it again goes back to building that sense of trust. I care enough about you, and the safe space. I care enough about you that I want to try to put some effort toward saying hello to you in a way in which you can understand it, or saying good morning to you in a way in which you can understand it. So just learning those few words and then allowing them to use that native language um, at appropriate times. And that's another misconception I know that we're going to talk about later. Using just English is not the only way. We know that we all learn really well by connecting to something that we already know. So making sure that children can connect and make comparisons and contrasts to that native language can really help them achieve that target language, that second language acquisition much better. It also, again, builds a sense of trust and creates that safe space. And last but not least, it's really important to make an effort to say these children's names correctly. I know that many of them are in languages that we don't typically use, but it says something when you spend time trying to pronounce that child's name correctly, giving them a nickname, shortening their name, changing their name. None of those things are going to make them feel like they are a part of your classroom or a part of your school, but showing that effort that you are trying to make sure that you're saying their name as best as you can. Their families spend a long time choosing their names, and in some cultures, those names are very important. So just making sure that you're trying to make sure that name is said correctly. All of these things are ways that I have found in my career that I can connect to being trauma informed, that really help newcomers, just to that we call it in second language acquisition, the affective filter. All of those things can help lower that affective filter and allow that child to start acquiring that second language easier. Okay, Miss Laura. I have here some ways that you, if you're a ML educator, or if you are a mainstream teacher, that you can use to kind of help others create some empathy for newcomers. I'm going to start kind of on the left side and work my way to the right. My Name My Identity campaign kind of connects with what I just talked about. Our names are so important. And they mean things in some situations. So making sure that name is said is really important. That's a quick little video. It's My Identity, My Name, My Identity campaign. It's a quick little video where children are explaining why their name, where they got their name and why it's important and things like that. So it's neat to kind of show or share with other educators. The next thing is the immersion short film. You can find short clips of this it's the interaction between a child and his teacher in math class, but if the longer version is about 12 minutes, and it kind of shows a little bit of his personal background and why he wants to succeed in school. There's some short snippets that you can use that kind of help educators see, well, why is this math difficult for this child, and why does he want to do so well, and things like that. So I've found, and I have used that in the past to help create some empathy, give the educators and others a good point of view of that child and what he's going through. On the bottom, I love Valentina Gonzalez. I just have her website here. I know they're probably going to speak about this later, but newcomers need something called comprehensible input. And she does a really great 3 or 4 minute video. Yes, we've used this video many times in PD. Yes, I used it this year with my JC Lynch teachers. And it's just a 3 minute video that quickly shows people what newcomers are going through. And it takes 3 minutes. I just really love it, just to kind of get those educators into their point of view and tell them how they're feeling. Then lastly, these are some books. Yes, Moises is the little boy's name. Thank you. And it's a great quick video. Then the last thing is Border Child and the Iguana Tree are 2 fiction books. I keep Border Child with me here at school. I read it, and I read it quickly, as well as the Iguana Tree. But this is a fiction story that the author is Michelle Stone, and she's from the South, but the story is about a child who immigrates with their family, and they kind of get separated and lost and things. But anyway, it's fiction, but the children and the family who migrates are living in the Carolinas. So this will be a great resource. Border Child and the Iguana Tree, small snippets if you're not a reader, maybe small snippets to share with other educators, to kind of give them a point of view of what do families go through once they get here, because it doesn't always work out the way they expect it to. And then lastly, a wonderful book is Enrique's Journey by Sonia Nosario. And she is a journalist. She won the Pulitzer Prize. But she is a journalist on current topics and has written this book based on a child's journey from, I believe, Guatemala, I'm not sure, all the way to the United States. And she really does a good job of just telling exactly what is going on. There's no opinions. There's no, this is what I think should happen. It's just a really good journalistic point of view of a child's journey from one country to another, and how and why he did that on his own. So those are some really good things that you can pull snippets from, or you can suggest people read. They're pretty easy reads, I would say. Those are about some of the things that I use on a regular basis, or talk about on a regular basis with my teachers here at JC Lynch. And that is, I felt like the entire time I was defining newcomers that I didn't want to talk about that and that, because I know we've got some great presenters coming after me, but that's just a quick overview and an idea of who newcomers are, and why we should make sure we remember that the trauma-informed classroom, as well as just their point of view and what they're going through. Thank y'all.
Okay, thank you so much, April. Really appreciate all of that and just kind of getting everything started. Before we keep going, a lot of these will be covered, but it's important that we remember to always think of newcomers with an asset-based mindset. So newcomers or MLs in general, and all of our students really, as well as their families, they have funds of knowledge, meaning they have knowledge that's specific to them, whether it's their cultural knowledge, their personal schooling knowledge, their way of life knowledge, maybe their work knowledge, maybe how they work together as a family. Anything you can think of is your funds of knowledge, and they have so much to offer. So it's important to think of them positively. So we're going to briefly touch on some of these misconceptions. We're not going to go into it really in depth here because a lot of it's covered in other places, but we just all want to start at the same playing field and remember that we're here to think of them as positively as possible. So the first one is that total immersion, or letting them sit silently in the classroom, is what we mean by that, during the silent period, is the best plan for language acquisition, right? So it's taking that silent period too far. It's like, well, if they just sit here and they're quiet and they don't do anything, eventually they'll pick it up. And we obviously know that that's not true. And the research by Krashen says newcomers need comprehensible input, and that is listening to information in a way that they can understand, right? And we'll talk a lot about that with teaching strategies, as well as low stress opportunities. And April mentioned that that low stress is what we call the affective filter, low stress opportunities. And then both those things together are what actually helps language acquisition, rather than the traditional mindset of, oh, if they'll sit, we'll just let them have their silent period. Well, there's ways that we can get them producing language in a like a low stress way that would help with that. Students need to stop using their home language at home and at school, or the thing where a lot, especially in middle school and high school, I can just translate, or I should just translate everything that I'm teaching, right? We know that it doesn't actually slow language acquisition down in order to to speak both multiple languages at once and learn multiple languages at once. It doesn't actually slow anything down. If anything, neurologically in your brain, it makes your brain stronger and smarter and work harder. So it's a gift to be multilingual, right? It's always important to think of it, how big of a gift it is to know multiple languages. And at school, it allows them to access the content, maybe talk with friends, maybe they can do some writing in that way, so that especially if they're newcomers, they can do writing in their home language to really work on some ELA standards while also still writing and doing all those things. So it shouldn't feel like something threatening. It should be a beautiful, wonderful thing. And translating everything that I'm teaching, the issue with that we hear about a lot is that these children aren't getting instruction in that particular language. So it comes out with it's such good intentions, but in reality, we're not teaching that biology class. We're not teaching that social studies class in whatever language that is. So while you can use a bilingual dictionary, you can use cognates, you can use translation services at times to help make that comprehensible, that input comprehensible, and to help them connect with that what you're teaching. It just translating it as is isn't going to help them learn the language, and it might actually will probably make it more difficult. But they speak so well. And what we mean by that is, well, they speak with their friends. I hear them talk with their friends, or I hear them talk on the playground, or they're talking in the cafeteria. But we know that social language, known as BICS, is acquired faster than CALP, which is academic language. And in addition to that, sometimes you have newcomers that learn phrases and use them. So you may hear them use certain phrases like, how are you? Good morning, things like that. They can kind of say, well, they talked back to me, but they actually don't know enough. They actually don't know a whole lot of English. So it's important to keep that in mind, and understand that we need to be looking at their academic language as school system, and help with that as well. They can't do anything. They can't learn grade level material. They're way too behind, right? It can seem very daunting sometimes to work with newcomers, but you have to understand they all come from very different walks of life with lots of different funds of knowledge that we talked about. And learning a language is not a disability, right? We know that, right? It has nothing to do with their intellectual level. And it can be a challenge, but that's where we're really going to talk about later with teaching strategies and assessment accommodations, things like that. It's incredible to make sure that we can be using small groups to help meet with them one-on-one and help do that. And it really causes us to reevaluate what are our goals with this student. And we want them to learn the content, but how are we going to go about doing that? And the last one, accommodations aren't fair to all students. Remember, we're after equity, not equality. We want everybody to get everything that they specifically need in order to be successful. It's actually unfair to not give accommodations that would then allow that student to have access to the content, access to the assessment, and to show you how they're growing, to learn that information that you're teaching and you're required to teach. But we'll talk about accommodations and stuff later. But keep in mind, these are just some misconceptions. These are just some things that we hear all the time. And we want to make sure we come into it with that asset-based mindset and understanding that these are incredible students from all over the world with incredible different funds of knowledge, and they have so much to bring to the table, and thinking about them in a positive way helps us to be better teachers for them. So now we're going to continue on. So Jennifer.
Good afternoon. I'm Jennifer, and today I'm going to share with you some effective teaching strategies to use with our newcomers. So our goal for using these strategies is to provide comprehensible input to our students, just like Laura said. It's important to keep in mind, though, there's no way it's possible to use all of these strategies all of the time. So as I'm presenting today, I want you to think about which of these strategies you already use in your classroom, or which ones you can easily use in your classroom starting tomorrow. So starting with being able to communicate with our newcomers, my favorite translation tool to use is Google Translate. It's easy for my students to use as well as myself. But when it comes to teaching instruction, there are translation tools built into the programs to help you make the content comprehensible. For example, Microsoft PowerPoint allows you to translate text on your slides, and it will provide the translated subtitles to your presentation in real time. So while you're up there at the board presenting your PowerPoint, the students can see the subtitles go across the bottom of the screen so they can understand the content. If you have more than one language represented in your classroom, you can also use that strategy on their computers as well. Immersive Reader is another helpful translation tool. Students can read and listen to the translated text using Immersive Reader. And it's so useful because it's already available on many of the platforms that we're using in the classroom, such as Schoology and Microsoft Teams. Some other resources that I use for making the content comprehensible is using bilingual resources in the classroom. Those can be in the forms of books, games, graphic organizers, and websites. My favorite website right now is sediscus.com. This is free for all South Carolina educators, and it's also free for any student in South Carolina. I like this website because it gives you multiple bilingual websites for our students. There's currently one on there called tutor.com, and this is available in English, Spanish, and Vietnamese. So when the students go to tutor.com, they can type in their grade level, they can click on their grade level, they can click on the content that they need to know more about or need assistance with, and there's a section for them to type in a question. When they click on Connect with a Tutor, it will connect them to a live tutor that will help them work out their question in their language. This is an amazing resource that South Carolina offers to our students for free, and you will definitely want to show them how to use this resource before they try it on their own. I showed my students how to use this resource earlier this week in my classroom, and a couple of them came back to me and they said, hey, this is great because I got help with my homework using tutor.com under SC Discus. It's available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I also use a lot of videos with my newcomers on YouTube. Most of the videos provide subtitles so they can understand what's happening in the video in their primary language. You can provide pictures and video dictionaries. Right now, my favorite website for video dictionaries is vitdictionary.com. The students can search by a word or by categories. It will show the word on the screen, and then it will read the word to them, and then it will show them a quick clip to represent that word. This vitdictionary.com is a great resource to use when teaching content and teaching new vocabulary for the content. We want to get our students as active as possible in the classroom. We want to see active participation with our newcomers. So one fun way to do that is through board games and vocab review games. My favorite game that I play with my students is Trashketball. You can easily find the instructions on the web. And what I do is I divide my students up into teams, and I give those teams a whiteboard. I will show the answer or show the question on the whiteboard, and I will say, okay, students, 1, 2, 3, show me your answers. And they'll hold up their whiteboards, and the students or the teams who get it correct will get a chance to shoot the ball into the basket, earning their points for their team. They love this as it gets them actively participating with the content, and they also get a chance to talk with their classmates in small group setting. Laura, can you go to the next slide, please? Along with videos, there are many visuals out there to help our newcomers, such as bringing real objects into the classroom. You can use images, photographs, and diagrams. We also want to make sure that we're letting them speak in their primary language in the classroom. It gives support, and translanguaging allows learners to express themselves. For example, a teacher may explain something in English and then allow the students to discuss it and explain it to each other in their first language. This values the learner and it boosts their self-confidence, allowing them to take risk in the classroom. And as April said, this can lower their affective filter. Also, getting them to actively participate, we can do this by using hands-on learning through experiments, foldables, and projects. Most of y'all may have heard of Dinah Zeich. She has an excellent website where she provides free foldables for teaching the content. And it's a great website and resource to use when you want to get a specific foldable for the vocabulary that you're teaching. We also can use projects. The students can show what they know. For an example, last year, my students were learning about the water cycle. So I went to Walmart, I bought some cheap Play-Doh and clay, and I had my students using a diagram that I got off of twinkle.com. They made a model of the water cycle using that clay and Play-Doh. And then I gave them printed out vocab words, and they had to label that model with the words that I gave them. And then they took that model and they wrote about the water cycle. So they were using all of those materials together to understand the content, making that content comprehensible. So other resources that you can do or strategies that you can use is interactive websites. I love to use interactive websites for reviewing the content and reviewing vocabulary. My 3 favorite websites that I use on a rotational basis is Kahoot, Lookit, and Gimkit.com. And we use those on a weekly basis and the kids love it. We also can use anchor charts and TPR, which is total physical response. It gets the students actively moving in class, and it also is motivating for the newcomers. Laura, can you go to the next slide? Before you give an assignment to a newcomer, it's very important to remember to model what you want the students to do. We need to provide completed examples. Oftentimes, I'll try to explain to my newcomer what it is I want them to do. And when I show them the completed example, they go, I see that aha look on their face because they understand that's what it is that I need them to complete. We can also use interactive bulletin boards. It gets the students up and moving around and participating with engaging tasks. It can be as simple as a parking lot for students to ask questions. They can answer a daily question on a bulletin board. It can be a matching or sorting activity as well. Really, the possibilities are endless when using interactive bulletin boards in your classroom. You can also provide multicultural literature. This will activate their prior knowledge when learning the content. And probably the most important strategy that I use is to provide scaffolds for my newcomers. This could be in the form of graphics, manipulatives, sentence stems, word banks, and word walls. Now, we never want to ask a newcomer to read out loud in class, but they can participate in choral reading, echo reading, chants, and songs. Laura? Can you go to the next slide? Thank you. So again, for any assignment or assessment you are giving to the students, you want to make sure that the newcomers are able to show what they know. We can do this by using activities such as gallery walks. This is a great way for students to get up, walk around the class, be an active participant in their learning, and also talk with their peers about what they're learning. You can ask the student to complete a project. This could be in the form of a poster, a collage, a diorama, or a diagram. I don't know if you can see it on the slide, but a few years ago, my students and I were reading about Everest, and I wanted to cover multiple standards with the assignment. So I had them make a poster of Mount Everest, each student. And on that poster, each component that they put on there represented a reading standard. For example, on our poster, they all designed a little ladder as that they were using to climb up the mountain. And that ladder represented the events of the story, putting it in putting it in the correct sequence. So that's just one example. Using a poster is a great idea to show many standards for one assignment. They can also create a presentation. They can create one in Microsoft PowerPoint or using Canva. They can make a pamphlet or brochure. Students love acting out stories and role playing. Then this will be motivating for your newcomers. They can design an infographic. And as I mentioned with Canva, Canva does translate into other languages. So this is a great way for them to show what they know with the content. They can make a model or a display. Again, remembering the water cycle model that my students made a couple last year. And then you can also have them classify or compare or sort using pictures or words on a chart. If you're, for example, studying the 3 types of rock, you can have a 3-column chart and give them a picture of different rocks, and they can cut it out and paste the rock under the correct category. So just to remember for the strategies, what the goal is to make these, to use these strategies to make the content comprehensible for the students. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Melinda. The next topic we're going to be discussing is state assessments. Remember that all newcomers will be required to take state testing. So it's very important that when you think about your newcomer, you want to collaborate with your content teacher, and the multilingual and the content teacher want to collaborate and select appropriate and individualized testing accommodations. So think about if they're completely new to English, like they're just now learning English, they might benefit from oral administration of math, writing, or science assessments. With that oral administration, the students can show what they know in math and writing and science without having the hindrance of not being understanding what's having to read the content. I'm sorry, my son just called me. Let me get back on track. And then also you might want to think about small group testing for these children, but be mindful if that's the best strategy for your child or your student, because they may not be comfortable being pulled out of the classroom for small group testing. So if you're going to assign that, think about will they be comfortable being pulling into another setting for small group testing. So these are just some accommodations that you and your content teacher can work together and decide for your student. Remember that whatever you put on the iLab, you'll also have to implement in the classroom. And the next topic, Laura, is classroom assessments. So when you're thinking about classroom assessments, you want to start with the standard. What are the students required to do? Do they have to explain? Do they have to discuss? So think about what is the standard asking, and then newcomers can show what they know in a variety of ways. They can point to an object. They can answer yes or no questions. Like Jennifer just talked about, they can draw and label a picture. They can give you an oral response or even give you like a single word answer. They can do a physical response or matching. And it is also okay for students to respond in their home language. So you can show what your student knows in a variety of ways. Newcomers can also get additional time to complete assignments. They can have a reduced number of assignments or even reduced test items. So these are accommodations that can be individualized for each individual newcomer. Next slide, please. So as you're kind of thinking about your student and how they're learning and how they're progressing, it's really important to think about progress monitoring. You can do this by talking with the teacher. It could be a formal or an informal assessment. It could be work samples. It could even be a conference that you discuss with the child. How do you feel that you're doing? And that progress monitoring will help you kind of inform your instructional decisions. So if you teach a concept and they're not understanding it, you might want to have to go back. You might have to go back and reteach it in a different way. So it's great to do that progress monitoring and not wait until the report card or the progress report to know if they're not understanding. Next slide, please. So you can do progress monitoring in a variety of ways. I love doing rubrics. My students were working on writing, and so I have a very simple rubric for them where they do a smiley face or a sad face if they have done do they have the capital letter? Do they have spaces? Do you have punctuation? So it's something simple that they have learned how to complete themselves. So they can do rubrics on their own, or you can do a rubric for your students. You can do a variety of checklists. Of course, we can observe our students and see how they're progressing. Work samples and exit tickets are another way to progress monitor. And again, you don't want to wait to the report card or the progress report to see if they're struggling in a concept or an idea. Okay, next slide. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the difference between accommodations versus modifications. So when I think about accommodations, you're thinking about how is the students going to how are they going to be able to demonstrate what they know? When we do accommodations, we are not changing learning expectations. Multilingual students are entitled and are able to receive as many accommodations as they need to be successful to learn the content. Modifications change what the student is expected to learn. So this means you are changing the activity, you are changing the difficulty, you are changing what they are doing. Next slide, please. So newcomers, like I said, can receive all kinds of accommodations. They are entitled, and it's great to use these accommodations. Visuals are, like Jennifer talked about, are so helpful with newcomers. Simplifying the language. You're not going to give a newcomer multiple steps. You know, they can get copies of study notes or study guides and notes of what you're discussing in the classroom. That peer buddy can be so helpful if they can speak that home language. It can help. They can discuss and they can explain what's happening in the classroom. And like Jennifer talked about, those sentence stems and frames can be oral, but also written and help them with their class assignments and their test. Next slide, please. So some suggestions, of course, like we talked about, is modeling expectations, repeating and rephrasing directions, and using cognates to help them learn and understand the vocabulary. I'm not going to repeat the ones that Jennifer already discussed. Next slide. So again, when we modify, we're changing the depth or the complexity of the content. During state assessments, we are not permitted to provide modifications. So think about that. If you're doing a state assessment, we cannot modify. It has to be done. If they're a third grader, they're doing a third grade test. If they're a ninth grader, they're doing the ninth grade end of course exam. They have to take that assessment. That can be a little scary when you think about a newcomer and you think about maybe like, well, they're struggling right now to read in English, or they're struggling to understand the concept. So temporary modifications can be appropriate for newcomers. And the great time to kind of do those temporary modifications are during small groups. So when you're in your classroom and your students are maybe struggling with a concept, or they're struggling with a skill, you can call them over to your table, and in small groups, you can go ahead and work with them on those and fill in those gaps on those skills that they need. However, long-term modifications are not allowable if students are trying to receive and they're seeking a South Carolina diploma. So we need to make sure that for a very short time, they're getting temporary modifications. But once we fill in those gaps, they need to be working on that grade level content. Okay. Next slide. So when we are grading our newcomers, we want to set high expectations. We know that these children can do so many things. They have so much knowledge and they can do lots of things. We just have to make sure that we are giving them the appropriate accommodations so they can show what they know on their assessments. Teachers can provide accommodations on all assignments based on the student's proficiency level and their needs. So typically a newcomer coming in is going to be a 1.0 or 2.0, and we know that they can show in a lot of ways. Remember that when we think about newcomers, we cannot fail them or retain them due to language proficiency. It is important to use those accommodations at all times. And I did link in the top corner the South Carolina guiding principles. This next statement is directly from there. It says, if teachers have demonstrated that they have provided all the accommodations, the students have not passed, then their grade is valid. But be very mindful that you need to provide all the accommodations that are on that child's ILAP. And the ILAP is not something that we as teachers have to do in August or September and not and we can't change it. When you get a newcomer, think about you just met this child 2 or 3 weeks ago, and then as you get to know that student, you might say, well, they would benefit from this accommodation on state assessments or classroom assessments. That is a working document that you and the content teacher can change. And as you're doing that progress monitoring, if you feel like they can benefit from another accommodation, they are entitled to every accommodation that that child needs, because iLabs are individualized and are working documents. I do want you to, although these are the South Carolina guiding principles, you need to make sure that as a classroom teacher, you are following your district and school policies for grading. So make sure that you are doing what your school and district is expecting of you as a classroom teacher. So I want to give you some practical homework suggestions to help you. Homework can be very stressful for families. They might have multiple children. They might be also learning the language, or they also might, have to work and come home and do homework. So we just want to make sure that homework is not something that causes undue stress for our newcomers. So a newcomer can have reduced number of assignments. My absolute favorite homework assignment, and what I tell my families, is have them read in their home language. The parent can read to them, or they can read to their parent. And then the parent can ask them questions like, who were the characters? What happened in the story? Summarize, because all literacy skills are transferable. They don't need to be reading in English. They can be reading in their language, their primary language. Another easy homework that they can do is just reviewing content vocabulary. Flashcards are easy for families if you make them for them. Provide them with the flashcards you want them to use. They can be multiplication or addition, or whatever, something that the parents could kind of work with their child at home. A lot of our parents are very eager and they want to help their students at home. So they are asking and looking for ways, and we want to make this something that's enjoyable for them. Another thing to do is they can listen to English songs on YouTube. Listening to songs in English and singing along helps with pronunciation. They could watch a TV show or practice an English conversation. I didn't put it on here, but my primary brain will tell you that another real fun thing to do is just work on letter formation. So the alphabet in English can be completely different than their home language, and they can do that with chalk or shaving cream, or there's a variety of ways to do all these things. So we don't want homework to be stressful. We want it to be enjoyable, and it could be ways that families can help at home. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm going to talk about inclusive classrooms, but before I start talking, I would like for you, Laura, to put that Mentimeter in the chat. If y'all could click on that and think of 3 characteristics of each one of your newcomers have. Can we see it, Laura? In the
Yeah, I can pull it up.
Screen. Thank you. Please just remember your newcomers and think of 3 words. The first 3 words that come to your mind.
I'm answering it myself first. Hold on. Haney, you need to pull up the, do you have it? I'm going to stop sharing if you want to share it.
Okay, hold on just a second.
You're good. Everyone else can continue to fill it out while we do this, and then we'll just transfer sharing real quick. Let's see here. Dun, 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 dun.
It's not pulling out for me. Well, I can see it. It's not pulling out for me. Just one second.
I have to give you rights. I'm just going to let all participants share right now, and then we'll do that later. So you should be able to share now, Haney. Look at the bottom on shares. Oh, you're muted.
It's not letting me share it.
Well, okay, why don't you just read what people write, and then we'll just go from there. So no
I'm
worries.
sorry. Okay,
Yeah, no worries.
yes. Okay. So I have sweet. I have scared. I have awesome. I have newcomers. I have participative. I have intelligent, smart. So all of these words that you wrote in there, they come from they come from your heart. And talking about newcomers and talking about inclusive classroom, it that's it. It's loving them and giving them a space. Laura, can you go to the slide? The key to an inclusive classroom is respect, and it is remember that each one is unique and they have different characteristics that um, we will work with. You there, Laura?
Yes, I'm sorry. Hold on.
It's
My bad.
okay.
Keep going. Hold
Right.
on. I think.
Another thing
Can you
that
see it now? Okay. Are you good now? I don't think you are. I'm so sorry. My bad. I was trying to put my. There we go. All right, you're good. You're good. Keep going. Keep going.
Okay.
Sorry, everyone.
Another thing that is important for teachers to work with inclusive classroom, and April mentioned it, has to do with a cultural humility. That cultural humility is the willingness to learn from their culture. There are several campaigns about pronouncing their names correctly. And if you haven't subscribed to our network, please do. There are some pledges. There are some campaigns such as My Name, My Identity, and
April, do you realize you're screen sharing? Hold on. Let me reshare. I'm so sorry, everyone. Yeah, share. Okay.
sorry,
There you go.
and one before.
All right.
One
So you
before
want us to play the video?
No, one before that.
Oh, the one
It's
before
cultural
that. See, I
humility.
thought we had gone on to the next
Names,
one. I'm so sorry.
holidays, and customs are
Yep,
very
you're good right
important.
here. I'm sorry, everyone.
Names, cultures, and important. Sometimes it just look like a small step, but this is a very significant gesture from a teacher, and it has a profound impact in their self-esteem and in the sense of belonging, to make they feel part of that linguistic community that we are creating in that classroom. So if you go to the next one, Laura, please. There's another suggestion, and this is classroom books and mirrors, classroom books as mirrors and as windows. The classroom books as mirrors, the students might find themselves reflected in a character that might be similar to their characteristics, or they might face the same problems reflected in the book. So they find themselves and they reflect on themselves. The classroom books as windows, they do not necessarily have to share characteristics with them. It might be from another culture, and it will give them different points of views to solve some problems. So incorporating a variety, a plethora of books also fosters a sense of cultural respect, encourages empathy, and expand their world. This is about language, and language is a window to the world. I'm going to invite you to watch this video. It's short, but and concentrates what classroom books and mirrors as mirrors and windows is. Can you play it? Can you play the video? Thank you. Are you muted, Laura?
I was muted. Yep, we're good. All right, here we go.
When I was in high school, the only assigned book that I finished before the due date was Black Boy by Richard Wright. On the surface, I am very different from the character of Richard within that book. I grew up in a different place, in a different time, of a different cultural heritage, but there was something about that book that captured me, something about the way he articulated the outsider's experience that really spoke to me. And I wasn't, I hadn't thought of reading Without Walls or anything at the time. I was like a 16-year-old kid. So I don't even know if I would have been able to articulate this when I was that age. But that book, reading about somebody who on the surface seemed very different, highlighted our common humanity. And I think that's one of the most powerful aspects of literature. It's one of the most powerful aspects of fiction. It's one of the best ways that we have of getting into the head of somebody who seems very different from us. And often when we do that, we see our common humanity.
I love the video. It promotes a deeper understanding of that, what is called a human experience. If you go to the next one, Lauren, learning a few words in the home language that April mentioned, it also has a double function. When we learn few words in their language, we're going to make mistakes when we pronounce it. So it gives the teacher, that human characteristic. So the teacher is making a mistake. I can make mistake, and they laugh. They appreciate that, and they laugh at the fact that we are trying in the same way they are trying to learn the other language. That resource that I don't know if you're able to see, but that resource has to do with welcoming signs and the school. When there is a new family with newcomers, they go to register in the school. They have that document in there. It has 16 languages, and they just point to one, and all it says is "Welcome to our school," and somebody will help you. And that breaks that wall, that initial wall at the beginning of the school time. Having flags in your classroom, when somebody doesn't belong to or is new to this country and they see the flag in the classroom, that flag is brighter. That flag connects you to your land, and it gives you a nice feeling. I can tell you that. If you go to the next one, Laura, I would like you to write a little bit in that chat. We're not going to use the other Mentimeter. I would like for you to write something about the value that these newcomers or these ML students bring to your classroom. I would like to you to recognize what that rich characteristics that they bring to your classroom. If you could please use your chat. Empathy. Learning about other languages, cultures, respect. A smile. I love that smile. I will. Culture, respect, excitement. All these qualities, they enhance that classroom community. Laughter, yes, inclusion, enthusiasm, humor, personality. Wow, this is what we want for the newcomers. Sometimes we focus on the negative, not because we want to criticize them, is sometimes we focus on what they lack. And probably what they lack is just that warm welcome, that sense of security, that essential information that they can get from us. And the The last one that I'm going to talk about is conduct surveys or interview. We have to know our newcomers. We have to know their backgrounds. We have to know what their families do. We have to know who to call if we need to call somebody. So in our network, again, you can find some examples of this, and then I listed some resources for newcomers. And this blog is amazing. It's like a web. So you click on one, and then it gives you other resources, and then it takes you to other places. Please enjoy it and use it. And thank you so much. Joanna, it's your turn.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Haney. It's time for engaging families. I'm Joanna Ruiz. I am a teacher from Venezuela. I'm currently teaching at Wynall High School. So as MLP teachers, we all want to set up our students for success. We want them to know and to feel that they belong to our class in the school. And at the same time, their parents want them to thrive in school. They want their kids to graduate from high school and to take advantage of college or career options. So in a certain way, we can say that we have or we share a goal. So now, of course, and yes, these partnerships are essential for our ML students. And we all want to build relationship with our parents. But sometimes we might feel maybe unprepared to do so, or we don't know where to start. We start asking questions. How, when can I support my family? What is the best way to engage and to approach my newcomers family? What tools can I offer them so they can support the students at home? So the main goal today is to offer some recommendations for engaging immigrants and multilingual families as partners in their kids' learning. So the next slide, Laura, please. So personally, I always use my own experience. No, yeah, right there. I always use my own experience. I keep constantly switching between my roles, my daily roles, as an ML teacher, as an ML parent. And this is like my starting point whenever I don't know what to do. So I start thinking as a parent, like what important information do I need to know? Or what I wish I had known to help my son on my first year here in the United States. So I came here as an international teacher, and my son's teacher expect me to know about how to reach out to them, to know about Power School Parent Portal, Google tools, classes, truancy. But the truth is, I didn't know anything about that. And sometimes families are really concerned about food, housing, bills, taxes, transportation, and it's really, really difficult to get, sometimes this adjustment phase in the United States. So the next slide, please. So what I'm trying to say is that the schools sometimes make assumptions that families have a basic understanding of the educational system, when in fact they don't. And this is especially true for most of our immigrant families who might not have attended school in this country. And using educational slang and talking about educational tools, evaluation, approaches to education can be confusing and may push families away. So I really like this quote, and it says the level of involvement depends on the parents' needs, skills, and interests. The amount of time in the United States does not determine a parent's stage of involvement from hand and love. So here I have all the things that as parents of children in the US schools, we are encouraged to do, to advocate, to encourage them in positive behavior, to collaborate, to volunteer. So think about all those things that we have to do as a parent. And now you have to add for our families, Google Classroom, Schoology, counselors, classes offered in the school. What is the school website? How can I translate this? What is the school calendar? What is the Power School? What is that? How can I check on my student? How can I talk to my teachers? So schools should develop strategies to communicate these expectations to the parents. So the next slide, Laura, please. So I was asking myself, how or when can I support them? So newcomers family, they need to know that their voices count. They need to learn how to be heard in the school. We need to be proactive, and here I got some resources. They're really helpful. And when is the best time? Anytime is the best time. It could be an enrollment day. We can create a welcoming environment by meeting with the parent, getting to know them. We can meet with them in the parent-teacher conferences. We can help them to navigate in the school, in the classes, with the teacher. And we can also even partner with different organizations, and we can provide families with resources like health, food pantries, library, free toys, clothing. We can have multicultural fairs or culture day, MLP night, meet and greet. There are anytime that you can partner and you can support the family. The next slide. So what is the best way to engage my newcomers family? So don't forget that when communicating with newcomer family, it is important to keep all your family's content information at hand. Identify your language access options, because then we go like, wait, but I don't speak their language. So we need to know what we have in the school. Maybe we have multilingual staff, interpreters, maybe sometimes the world languages teachers, they can help. We also need to help them to keep their contact information updated on the system, on PowerSchool. Make sure that they know how to contact you. And which is really important, create different channels of communication and find out how they prefer to communicate. It could be phone calls, it can be home visits, text, social media, mail, newsletters, email, but just make sure that it's translated in their own language. Find out when you can contact it, the best day, the best time, and ensure that family and school staff know that families are entitled to information in their home language. Be careful of assumption and perspective, and please, we have to try to avoid stereotypes. We also need to think about the challenges and how can we support them. Maybe transportation, what to do with the little kids. They have multiple children, maybe. They have busy work schedule. So what can I do to help them in order to avoid all the challenges? The next slide. And finally, well, Melinda, she mentioned some of these, or the best ways to help the kids, or what they can do at home. So, but how can parents help kids at home? I will always tell them, like, love them. That's the first thing you have to do. Show them love. Ask them, how was the school? What did you do today in the school? It can be in their home language. Read is very important. Sing songs, tell stories, celebrate your language at home, celebrate your culture and your time at home together. Tell me something interesting you learned today. That is just an easy question that they can start just to, to talk about the school and to help them. Encourage active listening, watch video. So by developing kids' literacy skills in their native language, parents also reinforce their kids' second language acquisition skills. And I want to finish my presentation with this quote. It says, a student's home language is something we should never try to take away from a student. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much to our incredible people. We do have some additional resources that we want to share. We have a new web page on our website, and it is all about newcomers. It's going live today. It's a continuously updated page on our website. And if you go to our website, you see the link right here. I'll type it in the chat as well. You can find all sorts of things. This presentation will be on there if you want to go back and watch it. You want to share it with a classroom teacher. If you want, so like strategies, the different newcomer things we put out every week with strategies have links embedded within them. They're all linked there. It's an incredible resource. We're so excited for Megan for putting this together. She's worked so hard on it. And like I said, keep coming back, bookmark our website on your computer so you can keep getting new information, regardless if you're in South Carolina or not. We have a feedback form. We would love to hear back from you about how you thought this presentation was useful today. It's literally like 2 questions. So we would love to hear back what further questions do you have? What did you like about the presentation? And then basically where you're from. And that's it. So here's the bit.ly for it. But you can also do all of that. We would love to hear it back. I'm going to send an email with this link as well. But like I said, if you can just take 2 seconds before you go home and fill this out, that would be amazing. Our next event, we have SETSOL coming up in just a couple weeks. If you're going, we would love to see you. If you're in the state of South Carolina and you're a teacher in South Carolina, join us for our beach walk on Thursday morning at 7 a.m. right outside the Embassy Suites. Very casual beach walk. We are not doing an extreme form of exercise here. It's just a time to enjoy being outside and get to know people in a really relaxed environment, as well as we have a raffle as well if you want to come. So we would love to give you guys a chance to win that raffle. So that'd be great. Next steps, like I said, follow us on social media, bookmark our website, join our mailing list. Like I said, we don't spam you. It's like once a month or when an event's about to happen. And that's how you keep up to date with everything. Thank you guys so much for coming today. We are sharing our presentations. The presentations will be linked on the website. On the newcomer page, we'll have the PDF of our presentation today, as well as the recording. So we'll let you guys know when that on social media, whenever that gets posted. It takes a little bit for the videos to all be done. So thank you guys all so much. Your certificates will be sent to you by Friday, next Friday. So thank you guys so much, and we appreciate it. Have a wonderful evening.